In the West Country, what I notice is that not all that many people will drink still cider in a pub, but the minute you're outside, that is what most people want to drink.
Especially if the sun's out.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Ria Windcaller, and I am the producer and cider MC of this weekly podcast, where we speak with makers, cider enthusiasts, and folks within the cider trade from around the world.
Hip, hip, hooray!
Evidently, still cider in the United Kingdom is something that people like to drink when outside versus in the pub. That was both Neil Worley of Worley Cider and Kimberly Jones of Honey Cider, bringing us into episode 444 of Cider Chat. And they are both our featured guests on this here episode. And wow, what a delightful time I had. I hadn't seen Neil since 2016. That's 9 years ago, if I'm doing my math correctly. Let's see. So yeah, that's 9 years ago. That's a long time. And it was just so good to see him. The guy just looks exactly as he did the day I saw him. Some changes have happened at Worleys. We're going to hear a little bit about that. And I also was able to meet Kimberly Jones, who is based up near Bath, not too far, probably about 30 minutes or so from where Worley Cider is located. And she took on a cidery that was already a really well-loved site for many people in the area and has taken on what is called Honey's Cider. It's named after Bob Honey. She's going to be talking about that. And the cool thing is we're going to be visiting both of them on the upcoming 2025 Totally Cider Tour UK edition. Definitely want to celebrate. This is a big win. I'm so excited. If you're new to Cider Chat, welcome. I'd like you to know that you should hit the follow button right now because you don't want to miss anything. If you love anything to do with apples or pears, any kind of palm fruit, as we call it, or drinking it as both fresh-pressed juice and fermented juice, you're in the right place. And on top of that, there's some really great people here. So if you're looking for a community of folks who are enthused and having a certain vitality on the land, a certain quality of life, not only living but tasting life at its best, you've landed in the right spot. And what we have been doing here at Cider Chat is offering cider tours since 2018. Last year we had the French cider tour, and right on the coattails of that, I headed over to the United Kingdom and recorded a number of episodes. So we are in this series of UK episodes right now to kind of get everybody jazzed up about what's to come in August when we head there. And one of the sites that we're going to is to Worleys, and that is based in Somerset. The last time Neil was on the podcast was from 2016. He was featured on episode 26, and this is episode 444, which just kind of blows my mind. And he did an amazing episode all on what Keeved cider is and how to make it. And the guy knows it because he won a top award in this category called the Golden Fork. And we'll be talking about that in this episode, so I'll leave you in anticipation of that. But he has such a personality. You know, when you meet people in the community, I don't forget that. I get attached to people, I get attached to places, which is probably why I love to lead cider tours. And it allows Cider Chat to spotlight a region, which is also really nice too. So we've been featuring makers from Somerset, and then last week we had on Albert Johnson, who's based up in Herefordshire in Ross-on-Wye. That's Ross Cider and Perry Company, because one of the places that we're going to be visiting on the UK Cider Tour is the Ross-on-Wye Broom Farm. So they have the brand, which is Ross-on-Wye Cider and Perry Company, and then the actual location is called Broom Farm. The Ross Cider Festival is something that you definitely want on your bucket list. Experience it once in your life. And coming on this tour, this UK tour that I'm leading, is one of the ways to do that with ease and not have to worry about the whole setup. You know, if you're from the UK, it's kind of easy to kind of figure out the camping situation. But when you're from further afield, not so much to bring all the gear that you need. And, you know, interestingly, because I have camped out in the orchard, thanks to the Johnson family helping me out there, it could get cold at night. And luckily for me, my past career history is as a wilderness instructor, so I know how to manage and set up myself when I'm camping like that. But yeah, you got to be prepared to do that for sure to make it at least enjoyable. Anyways, we're going to be going to the Raw Cider Fest as part of this UK tour. But before that, we're going to be in Somerset, going to Worleys. And because this is a smaller group than I normally take on tours, we are a bit more stealth. And what I mean by that is we're able to move about in ways that sometimes a larger group can't, and working with the makers to make it happen. So one of the days we start at the Showering Cider Mill. They do not, well, to tell you the truth, like both of these sites, Showering Cider Mill and Worleys, are not open to the public. You just don't go there and get tours of the site. It just doesn't happen. So I'm really, really excited that the Showering family, I actually cornered the brothers. I'll keep this between me and you, Ciderville. But I had just gotten the tour with Bob Cork that morning. And I was at my car kind of walking along. I had met Jonathan, Matthew, and Daniel Showering. There's 4 brothers. Earlier that morning, up in their office, there's a photo, I think, of me with them on the show notes with Bob Cork. And then later on, when I was kind of getting ready to leave, they were walking across the parking lot area, probably going to a meeting or something. And I stopped them, and they, you know, kind of being friendly in that way, you know, to get all you need. And I said, you know, it would be great if, and I laid out a little plan to bring a cider tour group to the mill. And I think it was Matthew who said, and Matthew is Nick Showering's dad, he goes, I'm going to try my little British accent, I think that'd be a good idea. So we got permission right then to do this, you know, place that you just can't get your foot into the door at that level, right there with 3 of the brothers, and we're moving forward with it. And I'm just totally, I'm just over the moon for that opportunity. So I really have been appreciating the support from the Showering family for setting this up and helping on that piece. And then seeing Neil kind of bending his arm a little bit to get us to come up to his site too, because it's not open as a tasting room. But the guy is making incredible cider. He has a whole range of different ciders we'll talk a bit about. And definitely check out the Instagram reel. You can see some of the ciders there. And of course, his Keeved cider that won a huge Mother of All awards. And then bonus at Worleys will be Kimberly Jones, who is also on this episode, and honey cider that she's making. She took over a brand, a well-loved brand. And so we're going to have lunch there up on this kind of like hilltop area. There's a big field, all these stone buildings, and get to have some really cool cider. And then later that same day, we're going from the largest cider mill in the country to the king of cider himself, who makes what is called a proper cider, and that would be Roger Wilkins. Again, our little stealth group, we're going to have our vehicle going up into the narrow roads of the Wilkins Cidery and check out proper cider direct from the barrel. Another bucket list experience, because it's going to be such an extreme from the Showerings to Rogers and then in between Neil. And that is just one day of the Totally Cider Tour UK edition for 2025, to give you a sense of that. All right, I could go on and on. One thing I should let you know is that there is a wait list for that tour, and the tour has gone out for registration to patrons of this here podcast, and then it goes on to the wait list, and we go down on order of folks who have signed up. And this tour is, well, it's over half filled now. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't get your name out on the wait list, because you never know what can happen. You know, the year is changeable. People's situations are fluid, just like cider. So if I've kind of piqued your interest, send an email this way to info@ciderchat.com. I do not have the itinerary posted for this tour. We're not doing that this time around. I'll be talking about it on the podcast. We're just sending out the itinerary to those who are contacting Cider Chat directly. Again, send an email to info@ciderchat.com, put up in the subject head Cider Tour, and send your question, or just say, hey, put me on the list for this tour to the UK or to any of the other tours. We're looking at France in 2026. And the way things are going, there might be other opportunities too. I have a little tip for folks out there who are in business. I mean, we could say specific to the cider business, but it really isn't just for cider. It's for any business person. If you have a website, make sure that you have an email address that you check, and it's listed on your website. And for folks going to CiderCon 2025 coming up next week, if you're going there, do sign up for the conference app and check the app. For one thing, those conference apps cost a lot of money. They come in really handy when there has to be an announcement or a change for a location for a workshop, or for some reason the workshop gets canceled. But also on top of that, there's a lot of folks who are representing different media, such as Cider Chat, or influencers who might want to talk to you. And if you're on that conference app and you're not checking your app, those messages will get lost. And this has happened to me at past CiderCons, where somebody said, oh, Rhea, I didn't know that you're trying to get a hold of me. Well, if it's Rhea and I'm already on site, it's probably going to be too late, that I've already filled that slot, that I wanted to talk to you out there in Ciderville and feature on the podcast. So please check the app. See if there's a message from Cider Chat, or send a message to Cider Chat if you think, you're going to be there and this is a good opportunity. You're bringing some cider and we could have a sit down. Those opportunities are awaiting you, and all it requires is some engagement. You make the product, but you want to be able to get your voice out. And Cider Chat is in the top 20% of all podcasts in the world. So it might be worth your time to reach out and check your social media, get your email out there, and make it easy for cider media and more to get a hold of you. It's time now to go to our featured conversation with two Somerset makers. And I want to just say that I'm so glad I found this place. And I'm so glad I went there before bringing a tour there later this year, because it's happened many times when I've been on a tour and the bus driver saying, really, am I in the right spot? And I'm able to say, yeah, you are. Keep going forward, because of my experience of getting lost initially. So I do that for you, Ciderville, just so we could have these special cider chats. So without further ado, let's all grab a glass and join this chat with Neil Worley of Worley Cider and Kimberly Jones of Honey Cider, both based in Somerset, England. Well, somehow I found this location. I came up a little dirt road through a village looking for some sign of Worley Cider. I went up once, turned around, went back up on the highway again, came back, and it still said, go up that road. And I came up here and I found Neil Worley backing up a trailer after doing a little bit of scrap metaling. And and I thought, all right, it's so good to see Neil again. Last time you were on the podcast, we were talking about Keeved cider. You did a fantastic job on explaining the details of that. And it's so good to see you. You haven't aged like 1 penny of an ounce there, which is always a plus. And now we're sitting outside of one of the production buildings on this spot where you produce the cider, Worley Cider. So we're going to help everybody kind of catch up to the situation at hand, where you are from 2016, we'll say, to 2024. And we also have Kim here, who is the owner of Honey's Cider, which is a little outside of Bath. So there's two cider makers here, both from the UK, and I couldn't be more delighted. It's not even raining out. The sun is out a little bit. It's just going to get sunnier and sunnier. So that is a true sign that we're supposed to be. So Neil, I'm going to start with you. Where is Worley Cider right now? What are some of the changes over the years? Let's catch folks up.
Well, first of all, I would like to say it's really great to see you as well, Ria, after all this time. And you don't look like you've aged at all either, so hey, here we are.
All the right things to say, thank you.
I'm aiming for good reviews. Worley Cider has gone through quite a few changes in that 8-year period. We became a relatively good size for a craft cider maker, and I think like a lot of people we did struggle through COVID, the COVID era, and that when you're working on an annual basis, if you suddenly aren't selling a huge amount of the stock you've got, it can take quite a few years to work that out through your system. Also, at the same time, I had a few issues in my personal life, which meant that the nature and ownership of the business had to change, and also gave me perhaps quite a bit more child-caring responsibilities. So it meant that I didn't really have 7 days a week, 52 weeks of the year to spend cider making. So anyone who's a parent will know that in that situation, you have to prioritise your kids above everything else. So I decided to just reduce the scale of the business to make it more manageable and try to focus as much of my energy as possible on the higher margin end of the sales mix. So out of the window went big wholesale orders, and I really stopped actively trying to sell into trade, although I continue to work with some trade. But at the moment, I'm not really seeking new customers. If I find new customers or they find me, then that's fair enough. But really, I'm concentrating on direct sales, either through the online route, or at events, of which I probably am now doing maybe around about 20 a year.
Events?
20 events a year.
Just in the West Country?
Yeah, just in probably within about a 25 mile radius of here.
Perfect.
One of our main ones, which I'm in my 11th year of doing, is an event called the Frome Independent Market. So Frome is a politically independent council, and that when those people managed to get their hands on power in 1997, they decided that they were going to do for Frome what the people of Frome wanted. And they decided they were going to have this monthly market, which it wasn't every month, so it's March to December. You have a couple of months off, January and February. And so the first Sunday in every month, I've been traipsing down there for 11 years, and that is just the most fantastic event. Kim is actually now got a stand up there as well. You've been there for how long? 3 or 4 years?
I think this is year 4.
Your 4th year.
Very good. Wow.
So I suspect I might have done somewhere in the region of 100 of those events, and so that's a good bedrock for us. They're incredibly, it's an incredibly well supported event. People come from all over the world. We get people from Brazil, Argentina, Canada, America, South Africa, Australians, New Zealand, all over Europe. If they're in the area, people have found out that is the place to go. And it has just been right from day one. It's superbly organised, it's very well curated, and it's just an absolute pleasure to do. So having that as a bedrock for just keeping me ticking through these years while I get things sorted out has been a great benefit to me.
What kind of format are you selling there?
I sell by the pint. So essentially we operate as a little bar.
Good, yeah.
I literally only sell my own cider, and that's it. So I'll take our full range of still ciders, of which there are 4, and I'll take 4 bottled ciders as well. I've got a fridge fan, so everything turns up at the bar cold, and we ice the bottles, so everyone's getting a really nice temperature cider.
Can I ask you about that? Because I wonder how how much cooler cider is popular here? Is that what is expected? Or people drink it room temperature like a cask ale or what?
It does depend. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's widely considered that cellar temperature is good for a still cider, so maybe 12 centigrade, something like that.
Yeah.
It also seems that if people want to buy a bottle of sparkling filtered cider, they tend to kind of expect that it's going to be
cool.
quite cold.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of horses for courses.
Yeah.
Obviously, if your still cider is a bit too cold for you, you can just hold it in your hand for 5 minutes before you start drinking it.
Yeah, warm it up.
But that seems to me to be certainly our experience of the bar.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're selling there, and Kim, honey cider. What kind of formats do you sell?
It's similar in it's a little bar, but we're in at the other end of the market to where Worley cider is. So we sort of integrate into a farmer's market area. So we do sell a little bit of retail as well, sort of like 3-bottle gift packs and things like that,
nice.
or mulled cider kits during Christmas. But we normally take a keg and a bag and box of still cider as well, so we can certainly sell a few pints too.
I guess it leads right to the next question that I was going to ask a little bit later on, but why don't we talk about it? What has changed with the drinking public in terms of cider that you've seen since we met back in 2016, and what are you both seeing in that market?
I would say, I think perhaps, early 21st century to maybe about 2015, there was post the Magners boom years, there was a much more interest all over the country in still cider. So we were stocking a lot of pubs. We used to sell about 16 pallets a year of still cider to Wetherspoons for their National Cider Festival. So we'd be in over 500 of their sites. And that seemed to have been a bit the peak. It seems to me to be the peak of still cider sales. And certainly in the West Country, what I notice is that not all that many people will drink still cider in a pub, but the minute you're outside, that is what most people want to drink.
Especially if the sun's out.
Yeah, it is definitely a cultural thing in the West Country that when people are outside, they seem to want to drink still cider. Don't ask me why, I don't know, it just
Because
seems
the
to...
apple trees are talking to them,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
think
you see it and it's lovely.
And people have done that.
Wow.
You get the impression
I
that
love
people have always done that
Yeah.
throughout their lives. It's almost like it's been passed up through the
Oh,
generations.
that's nice.
So when people are out and you meet up with people you
Yeah.
know when you're working, you know, they don't even think about it. They will always, nearly always, order still cider, and we might sell, I don't know, maybe work it out, at least 5 times as much still cider as we sell carbonated cider at these events outside. But because people aren't drinking it so much in pubs, there's definitely less, to my mind, still cider being drunk in pubs. That seems to be what's changed since 2016
Yeah.
for me.
So in terms of the demand and culturally,
I think it's changed. I think what maybe quite a few craft makers have managed to achieve, and this is certainly what my philosophy was to try and create, with a bottled cider, trying to create a product that consumers didn't associate with something that maybe they tried in the past and didn't enjoy, which some still ciders in the past had that effect, and people were a bit wary of still ciders. So what I think what I was trying to do was create products that look and feel familiar to consumers, but are on a different wavelength when it comes to flavour. And I think that seems to have been a bit of an ethic that has gone through the craft industry to some extent.
well, it's paid
So
off.
people are finding that they will, they can try a bottle of either mine or Kim's ciders, and it doesn't make them think, I don't like cider, or I'm scared of cider. They'll say, oh, I'll try that, and then they go, wow, that's so much better than what I can
Yeah.
normally find in a pub.
Definitely a shift.
So yeah, I think that's been a good development overall.
Yeah.
Do you agree there, Kim?
Yeah, no, definitely. I was going to mention flavour ciders. I didn't know if that was a good idea or not.
Well, there are flavoured ciders out there. What do you mean by that?
I'm not quite sure when it started, but there was definitely a slight shift in popularity of sort of mixing a different fruit or something in with the blend, like a blackcurrant or a rhubarb or a strawberry cider or elderflower, something like that. And I did find that there is a little bit of a market for that. Although being a craft cider maker, it sort of goes against the grain a little bit. But when you keep getting asked if you're at an event or if you've got a fruity one or something like that, it sort of makes you just think, should I have a go or should I not? I mean, there's various reasons to and to not to. The duty is higher on it, so that is a little bit of an extra cost involved in making it, and obviously then to the consumer. And also, there's a bit of a thought of cider is cider. It shouldn't necessarily be mixed with something else. So we've actually got two, one of which was developed by Bob Honey and his son-in-law. It was based on a local drink in our area. It's a blend of cider with ginger beer, actually, which is really nice and refreshing. It's not,
my goodness,
it's
wow.
It's not too sweet, and it is quite popular in the Bath and local area because people sort of know where it came from in the backstory. So that's one of our really good sellers, especially in the summer.
Well, I mean, I think you hit it right on the nose. People are familiar with the backstory.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what really drives the market right now for products such as cider. So just to get this straight, so it's ginger beer.
Ginger beer.
Beer with ciders. Is that kind of like a shandy, a little fusion of a shandy, would you say?
I guess essentially, yeah, it is.
Yeah, a little bit, huh?
Yeah, it's a little bit sweeter, but it is quite nice and refreshing, and it definitely, the blend that we've got to in the end point, you don't get, the cider isn't lost in it, which I think it happens a lot when you start mixing it with other ingredients. And you can definitely know it's cider, and you just have that little sort of nice fiery sort of ginger beer taste, which is, it seems to go down quite well. And people are often very surprised when they try it because it's not something that's the usual mix.
Expect, yeah. What is that called? Product called?
It's called Stony Bonk.
Stony Bonk. I love it.
Which is so the name that it was used in the sort of local pubs, sort of in the, I guess, 50s and 60s. Right. It was quite a popular drink amongst like the farmers and builders. The cider was very strong and often very dry, and so they would mix it with ginger beer, and that's how the name came about.
Was it something they only drank at lunchtime?
It was their lunchtime drink, so that they could have a bit of a refreshment and then
Stony Bonk,
and continue working without being too sozzled.
What is the ABV on that?
It's 4.
4, okay.
Yeah, so it sits in your classic sort of sort of flavoured cider kind of range.
No, that's curious, because I'm definitely seeing the shift of like the paradigm where, especially coming out of the UK, I know, and that's true in the US, there's like really the thought that cider is just 100% apples, but historically in the US always has had other things mixed into it. So that's just part of the culture. And I think maybe Americans were looked at like being like, what the heck are you doing? Putting in raisins or, maybe even molasses or brown sugar, but that's what folks did even back in like the colonial time.
So as a cider maker, for me, it's like mixing colours for painting.
It's artistry,
And so it's possible to create a lot of different types of flavour and a lot of different effects just by using the different fruit, different levels of acidity, different levels of sweetness, different fermentation techniques, and you can create a wide variety of different tasting products only using cider apples.
Absolutely.
So you don't really need necessarily to create that, the differentiation with other products. That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
We're about to try a new sweeter blend this year as well. So based, by blending different apple varieties and sort of thinking what you might get out of it and trying to expand our cider range. Just to have something a bit more medium sweet as well.
Is it primarily then sweet at Honey's?
No, we've got a
dry.
It's medium dry as our
medium
sort of
dry. Okay.
core couple of ciders, and now we're sort of at a stage where we want to try and just develop the range and see what's missing. And let's say with the amount of different varieties of apples available, you can really try and sort of hone a really good blend, which Neil's helped me with on deciding like what's available and what we can use. So they're arriving on Thursday, so in 2 days' time, the apples. So
it's going to be game on time, isn't it?
So
we're at the lull before the storm.
We're hoping it's going to work because there's 18 tons of fruit coming. So.
Oh, that's all?
We've gone big. We've gone big.
Oh my God. When you see that rolling in, it's like, oh my gosh, okay.
Oh, I hope we got that right.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. So let's talk a little bit about some of the changes in terms of your production here, Neil. We talked about it earlier, but just for the out there in Ciderville.
Oh God, I try and remember where we were in 2016. Obviously, we'd started making Special Reserve by that point. I remember very distinctly discussing with you, Rhea, that because of the quality or the characteristics of the fruit that I was able to lay my hands on, I didn't actually need to macerate fruit before I keeved it. And actually, the way the process worked, being very manual, and it wasn't an easy thing to do anyway.
Yeah, right.
But as I said at the time, it never failed to keeve. So, hey, what was the problem? Anyway, one year I thought, right, I will. And between probably 2015 and 2019, I think by 2019 I'd been making it for 10 years. And in that period, I had been gradually refining the blend of fruit I wanted. So, yeah, my tame apple grower used to absolutely dread the day I walked in because he said, oh God, lots of fiddling around, isn't it? But actually he's always supported me. He knows what I'm trying to do.
Yes.
And also around about just before then, I did start experimenting with maceration, and suddenly the level of that product just went right through the roof. And it was a combination of getting the blend absolutely where I wanted it to be, but the maceration made a massive difference.
It improved.
Yeah.
Okay,
the depth of flavour, the colour,
okay.
the kind of different layers of flavour that you could achieve. And then of course in 2019 I was lucky enough to receive a golden fork at the Great Taste Awards. Now that might be something that happens once in your lifetime if you are really trying
you can't get
to
much
do
better
that.
accolade than that.
That's
for
like
your
the
product.
Oscar.
I think in that year in 2019 there were 13,500 of the best food products in the UK and abroad, and they give out 16 golden forks. So
it's an actual golden fork.
It is. I don't know. You took my golden fork for some reason, didn't you?
I cleaned it for you because when we did the talk, you wanted to show it
Is it
off.
still at your house then?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I was trying to find it to show Rhea.
It's in the sink next to the spaghetti bowl.
She's scrubbing off the name Neil Worley, having it re-engraved with Kim Jones.
That works.
But yeah, so that's essentially you're looking at about a 1 in 1,000 products.
Yeah.
Getting that accolade, and that for me was just real recognition. It's quite an emotional moment actually.
I'm sure.
And recognition of 10 years of work on that one product, really, and that was developing every single year until it got to that point. I haven't had another golden fork since then, I'm afraid to say.
Do people get double forks?
You get a knife the next time.
You get a knife.
That's to stab the person who won the golden fork.
I would kind of like a spoon. I don't know. It's just, you know. But.
Yeah. So I mean, that was a major that was quite a big leap.
Huge.
I think basically it just managed to get all the production fitting together really neatly, so you're not really having to have small loads of apples
Hustle
delivered.
so much, right.
It's about getting everything to fit.
Yeah.
And the blends just seem to fall into this pattern that meant everything worked. I can't remember. We did have to streamline a little bit. I think I was making 3 medium bottled ciders one year, and they were all really, really great. To me, I loved all of them, but essentially it was like I had to choose between my children.
Yes,
and
that's exactly what I was thinking.
And so that was a bit painful. And even to this day, I think there's a lady that Kim works with, and one of our customers, And you were telling me the other day that even to this day, she still talks about that product, that one of the ones that got cut. Doesn't she?
Every time we bring up Worley cider, it's like, I really like that harvest spoon. And I was so disappointed when they stopped doing it.
So, yeah, but I mean, inevitably, it's great. You think you go through a period of massive experimentation in all aspects of the business, so the commercial side, the sales side, you know, the volume size, if you like, how big you want to try and get, and what implications that has for things like margin and what the market looks like.
Yeah, do that.
And what you can physically cope with making as
And
well.
what you can physically cope with making.
Yeah.
So you're obviously also experimenting with products as well. And there comes a point, I think, when you have to, or for me, there came a point where you have to rationalise and make things, you know, so you're literally not working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yes.
Otherwise,
agreed.
it's just too much. And, you know, I didn't mind that period.
But you have this like engineering background.
Yeah.
So was there a light bulb that went off for you? Like, how do you see that? Because sometimes we're so into it, we're working constantly in the business, whatever the business is, that we don't actually have time to step back and go, now let me assess this. So what did that for you? What allowed you to do that?
I think it's a kind of a combination of things. It's a combination of like circumstances, things like economic load sizes, for example. So if you're hauling fruit 20 miles, you can't really afford to haul 2 tons at a time. You know, you need to have the optimum size of load.
Right.
So it's kind of all those elements come together, and you think, well, I'd like to make that, but if I do, I'm going to have to make 3 years worth of that, whereas something else that's coming in a load,
So the economics is really kind of like the barrier that you push up and you say, I got to do something differently.
Economics.
I mean, that makes sense.
Because, I mean, none of us know this when we start our first business, I don't think, unless you've been working in the financial part of the business, but you don't necessarily realise how interrelated things like product range, amount of hours you're working, are then relating to how much money you can make. Physically, how much you can make out of the time that you are spending putting into it.
Yes. We were talking about the economics of it, but maybe we could kind of shift here a little bit. Neil, you're still making that Keeved cider.
Yeah,
You are. So, and that is still in 750 ml formats?
it is.
Bottles.
I'm actually doing a new experiment this year, and I'm bottling it really late.
Yep.
I think one of the things I've been learning in the last few years is a bit like the wine oxidation event. We probably all know now that there's not a lot of point opening a bottle of red wine and instantly pouring it to the very lip of the glass and drinking it straight away, because it will improve with a bit of oxidation. Now, I'm absolutely OCD about oxygen and cider. I keep it so tightly battened down that I think, in fact, some of our ciders could probably benefit from actually a little bit more oxidation, particularly certainly juice-wise, for a start. So I'm increasingly experimenting with extending the period between milling and pressing a bit, but also I think just allowing, at some points, a controlled amount of oxidation to see what impact it has.
So that's the 2023?
This is a
Are you going to be bottling?
I'm going to be bottling it in the next week or two.
Okay.
So it's Keeved. We tried it the other day, didn't we? What did you think of it?
Oh, it was lovely.
You're always kind of like pushing the envelope and kind of tweaking the recipe a little bit. And the fact that you're looking at that science piece of the oxidation. What do you think?
If you're perhaps of a science engineering background,
You can't help
you
yourself.
just can't help yourself, because you just wonder what's going to happen. It's just
Let's try it.
Curiosity.
Yeah.
And actually, for me, you know, when I said we've gone through a process of consolidation, and a lot of it, as I said, was kind of the realities of economics, if you like, or the realities of commerce defining more what I was doing. I knew that had to be done, and as a kind of academic exercise, that in and of itself was quite interesting and worthwhile, but it did mean that essentially I wasn't really doing as much of the thing that I really always enjoyed in cider making, which was, I mean, I've always said it is essentially my creative outlet. So, and if you're not being creative, then the reason for you doing it is greatly diminished in my particular experience. So I suppose that's what pushes me to, I mean, I don't even really do it on purpose half the time, do I? I just start thinking, oh, it's a bit late, I haven't got round to bottling that yet. And it's like, oh, I wonder if that's going to be right. And so, oh, actually, I wonder how long we can not bottle it for. and then, you know, and then suddenly you're in an experiment, which is great. I think it's largely caused by laziness to start with, maybe, but, you know, then it becomes, oh, actually, that's quite interesting. But I think, Kim's from a scientific background as well, and you...
Originally, I went to university and did biology, and then I did a doctorate in plant genetics and that side of things. And then, so I've got definitely that interest and that sort of desire to look at things and figure out how they work and what you can get out of them and change something here and there to get a slightly different result. So that's definitely the science engineering side definitely helped.
Are you making Keeved ciders at Honey's?
Not yet.
Not yet, but that's like a step in the direction.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I would like to definitely have a go at, but it's certainly something, you know, I'm aware I'm probably not going to get it right on the first go, or even second or third go maybe. But yeah, it was definitely something I would really like to have a go at.
And what about your fruit? Where is that sourced from?
All over at the moment.
Okay.
Depending on which apples, what varieties we want. Where we are based, we have got a small orchard of about 5 different varieties as well. So we started off with using those, and they were planted when Bob Honey bought his farm, and he looked on the old maps and he wanted to sort of revive a bit of Somerset heritage because he saw that a lot of the fields and pasture was orchard. So that's how he started cider making, was he just wanted to rejuvenate a bit of the countryside really. So we our first blend started off with those sort of 5 or 6, and then as the business grew and our desire to experiment and create some different ones changed, we needed to buy in apples. So we get them from all over at the moment, all over the West Country.
Well, it's not like there's not enough apples around here to do that.
No.
Right, you're not at a lack for that. So let's just talk a little bit about Honey's and what happened there. Because you were working with Bob Honey.
Yeah, he. When I did my PhD at Bath University, I finished and I did a sort of few short-term kind of research contracts, and then I sort of somehow, I'm not even quite sure how, I got into doing a bit of bookkeeping, and that's when Bob and his son-in-law approached me and said, you know, we are rubbish at admin. Do you mind helping out, sort that out? So that's how I got involved. During that period, I got more involved with, could you help doing a stall? Could you help with some pressing this day? Could you do a bit of deliveries? And then it sort of got to the point where Bob was looking to sort of retire. His son-in-law didn't really want to take the business on full time, and none of his family sort of wanted it. So he didn't really know what to do with it. And it was a small, sort of good quality cider business, you know. It was making a bit of money. It was quite established in the local villages.
How long ago was it founded? When did you open it?
I think he started pressing cider in Midford in 2002.
Okay.
So quite a 22 years ago.
Yeah,
Gosh,
sure.
I never looked at it quite that. I hadn't said that number out loud before, I don't think.
Right.
So yeah, I basically said, well, what about me if I took on the business? And we sort of sat down around their kitchen table one morning and we wrote a few bits of paper down, and that's how it all came about.
Wow.
Really? Yeah, so I sort of took it on and started doing it, and then as it was growing I thought, I need a bit of help here. My dad had recently retired and I was like, Dad, are you a bit bored? And yeah, so he came along and started helping out, and we sort of do it together now, which is really nice.
Yeah, that is really nice. And you have
Stony Bonk. I know.
That name. I love that one.
People don't always like saying that word.
What other names do you have? What other names of the ciders and styles do you have there?
We've got a Cam Valley, which is named after the valley where Midford is, and the other one is Midford Cider. We did this 2 years ago. We experimented with a single variety cider, which we made from brown snout apples, which is a late bittersweet, which we've got about 40 trees of. So we did that, and that came out quite nicely. We couldn't make it the following year because it's a biannual tree, so we literally had virtually no fruit on them that year. So we'll probably have another go this year.
And do you also do draft?
Yeah, we keg our Midford cider, which is basically our core medium dry. So we have that in keg for sort of pub trade, and then bottled as well.
When you got into the cider making business and you're running it, what was your thoughts like for the future of cider? Were you like, this is a good kind of family thing that I'm kind of helping out them, they're helping out me? Or were you thinking, dang, like cider's like the business to be in right now? And
well, I grew up and spent my childhood in Hereford.
Oh,
So
okay. All right.
I was very familiar with cider from an
Right,
early age.
yeah.
I've always loved it. And it was just an opportunity that came up, and I thought, I'd love to have my own business. And I've got help from Bob Honey and his son-in-law to sort of help us along the way as well. And I just saw the opportunity. And to be honest, my main thought was, if I don't do it, I think I'm going to regret it. And so that's how it came along.
Because the opportunity was like there, like
I thought
it doesn't come very often that
No.
in that kind of circumstance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All the things sort of aligned, and I thought, I'm
Wow.
absolutely daft if I don't do this.
Yeah.
And I love cider.
Yeah.
I love getting involved in the process of it.
Perfect.
Going around seeing customers, doing event bars and, chatting to people. And I just thought this is a really great thing to embrace and see what you can do with it, really.
Right. Now, how did the two of you meet? You met over cider, right?
Yeah, pretty literally.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think Kim just touched on something there which I think is quite interesting. That actually both of us had quite a long history working in hospitality. I started working in pubs a week after my 18th birthday, and I've worked in pubs on and off ever since, and always absolutely loved the social kind of side of that. And Kim, also you spent years working in hospitality, didn't you?
Loads doing, pubs
okay.
and working at
And enjoying
event
it.
companies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that is something which I don't often really consider, but I know it's the truth, and I think it's the same for you, Kim, isn't it? Is that actually you're integrating a part of your life, your working life, that you've really enjoyed, and that is like a free added bonus with
Yes.
running your cider business.
Yeah.
So you're doing the things, another aspect of something you've done in the past that you've really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And of course, I was working at my bar when I first met Kim. Of course.
Yeah, it was just after very shortly after I'd taken on Honeys, actually. And I thought, I've not really met anyone else from the cider industry. And you sometimes don't, because you're often down a little country lane somewhere, not miles away from others.
Interesting point.
But
yeah.
it's quite difficult unless you're at events or doing stuff. You don't always cross paths. And I certainly hadn't at the stage I was at in the cider industry. So it was at Wells Food Festival, I think. I had a stall there, and Crow, Bob's son-in-law, said, "Oh, you should, if you come across Neil from Worleys, he's a really nice chap. You should go and introduce yourself and say hello." And that's pretty much what I did.
Wonderful. I love it.
What did you walk away with that afternoon?
I walked away with your Keeved cider. And
Well, the golden fork. I mean, come on. That's just not any Keeved cider.
And then
no, it wasn't, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It was probably the best cider I'd ever tasted.
Wow. That makes me think of the fact that not everybody has the personality to be in front of people, being able to engage, to converse, to have the admin piece. It really you have to be like very multifaceted as a person to make a go of it and to do it well without a whole bunch of help with all those extra like little duties. So if you could do that and blend what you already have a strength in and enjoy it, as you're saying, Neil, that's key.
Yeah.
That's the golden ticket.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I've done quite a few different types of jobs, and like you say, some people it isn't their cup of tea, being in front of people like that, selling cider or standing up at cider conference and talking to 1,000 people about the intricacies of wild
you
yeast
did, you
use.
did so well. You do it
Which
so well.
You're
a natural.
I know.
You're natural.
But
You should do it more often,
But if
actually.
people have got that, if you've got that inside you, and I think it's almost like it's like wanting to be an actor, isn't it? It's like I always think it's like your own little stage having your bar. And either you're like that or you're not. I mean, I've always loved doing it, but I know some people, it makes them incredibly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So,
you have to be able to sell your product. You know?
Yeah.
And nowadays with the consumer is really all about knowing what the story is, knowing who you are, where their product is coming from. And do we like that person? And people basically use their money to make that decision.
That's right.
Definitely. And
But it's the perfect Renaissance man encapsulation, because you're tested in so many different disciplines. And if you can actually put those all together and succeed, then I think it's just really, it's challenging and it's rewarding and it's risky. You have to,
It really is risky.
Yeah.
Super risky.
So there's, for me, that kind of combination of challenges, but it's constantly testing your skills really and making you learn new skills. And that for me is what cider making is being about. This is my 20th harvest now, this year, and I've never done anything else for that long in my life. It's just, I normally will have to move on after a certain period of time because I'm not feeling sufficiently challenged, I think. But this has always kind of kept me on my toes, and it's great. It's really fascinating, and also the other people who work in cider, or almost all of the other people who are involved with cider, are just such great people. Great community. Most people are autodidactic. They've taught themselves, and everyone does it their own way. But nobody seems to be the kind of person who really just wants to go, oh, how do you do it? I need to do it like that.
No.
What
fun is that?
Everyone must a lot of people seem to have the same kind of personality characteristics, that they want to be independent. They want to try a lot of different aspects. And so I suppose we all recognise each other in that respect.
Yeah. Well, you poured a little glass here. What are we?
Well, this, I thought I wondered if you'd like to taste this. This is the special reserve that has yet to be bottled.
I was wondering if it was, because it's like, I took a sip. He put a little glass next to me, picked it up. It's this beautiful golden hue. Just reminds me of the gold fork, over and over again. It's coming back to me. It was a little parched, and I was like, damn, that's good. That's good.
It's so deep.
Yeah,
I just
super
love the
deep.
depth of flavour.
All the way through.
But of course, that's yet to be carbonated.
I know.
So by the time when it gets in the bottle and starts to carbonate, we'll then get another layer of acidity, and you'll get in the prickle, which will heighten all of those levels of flavour.
I could drink it just like this,
well,
though. I'd be mighty happy.
We have been. But yeah, I know. But I'm really excited to find out what it's going to be like when it's actually finished.
Yeah.
Because I think this might be spectacular. I'm going to try and get another golden fork next year with this. I had to do something different, so that's it. I'm bringing something new to the party. If I don't get a golden fork, I'm retiring from great taste.
not cider making. Who knows?
In the show notes, you could find the contact info for both Worleys and Honey Cider, and any mentions in this here episode, along with signing up for the waitlist for the next Totally Cider tour. Here at Cider Chat Central, we are packing for Chicago and getting ready to be there for CiderCon 2025, enjoying a bit of Chicago Cider Week and a Chicago Cider Summit. So if you're heading that way, let me know. And if I see you there and I don't recognize you, please introduce yourself, because, well, sometimes when I'm at these types of events, I just can't keep my head on straight, and I may recognize you or I may not, and I need help with names. So please don't take it as anything but encouragement to help me remember who you are, because you are very important to me. I'll be bopping around here and there during the week, and catching up with all of you there, and returning also next week with another episode of Cider Chat. And with that, I leave you here. This is Real Wind Caller signing off for now. Looking forward to seeing you in Ciderville.
Bitter sharp, strange apples, juicy ripe. Bop, 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 ba-da-doo-dee-da, bop, 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 ba-da-doo-dee-da. Who wants a tannenbaum?
I want a tannenbaum.
Who wants to pull them down?
I'm gonna pull them down. Hey, 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 apples, bittersweet,
strange apples, hanging high. Got them strange apples. Forget the pie. Strange apples. Squeeze them tight. Got them strange apples. Strange apples. Strange apples. Make them pop. Pop, 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 ba-da-doo-dee-da, pop, 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 ba-da-doo-dee-da.
Who wants a tannenbaum?
I want a tannenbaum.
Who wants to pull them down?
I'm gonna pull them down. Hey, 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 apples.
Come and see
Plenty strange apples for you and me.
strange apples. Strange apples. Strange apples.
Make them pop. Pop, pop, pop.
Ba-da-doo-doo-da.
Pop, pop, pop. Ba-da-doo-dee-da. Pop, pop, pop. Ba-da-doo-dee-da. Pop, pop, pop. Pop, 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 pop.
Yeehaw!